Alright guys, today on Above and Beyond we're doing a DIY smoke machine to get rid of those pesky vacuum leaks, and I'll show you what to look for on your OBDII scanners to see if it really is a vacuum leak or something more serious. All today on Above and Beyond. Alright, so here's the plan. All you really need is an empty paint can. You can get these in Home Depot for about $2. And what we're going to do is drill 2 holes, an entrance and an exit, and something inside that we're going to light on fire that's going to make some smoke. So you can use oil, you can use wood, basically anything that will burn that makes a lot of smoke is perfect. And you have some plastic coating in here that'll burn off the first time you heat this thing up. But basically all you need is this, some air fittings. Now I'm using an air compressor, but you can use an air pump or a hand pump. You're also going to need a drill with a pretty nice and beefy drill bit to drill through the lid. So we're going to need to put in 2 holes, and if you're using air fittings, these are just standard 1/4-inch air fittings and nuts, so we can drill through and attach them from the other side. Then all we have to do is fill it up with whatever we're going to burn, close the lid so it doesn't actually burn, it just smokes, and apply heat, and it should work well. Let's get to it. All right, this step's pretty simple. Basically, we're just drilling through this cap. Depending on what hoses you're going to be using for this will determine the size of your drill bit. I'm using regular air fittings, so I'm using a pretty beefy drill bit. If you don't have a drill bit big enough, you can always just use a smaller one and drill a bunch of holes and then just knock out the metal and make it work. It doesn't really have to be NASA grade. And if you're drilling through metal, it's always a good idea to use some sort of oil. Anything will really work. Everything from WD to motor oil will work. Just lube it up a little bit so you don't kill the drill bit. All right, once you have your holes drilled, it gets pretty simple from here. So we have to put an inlet and an outlet into our little can. So I'm using a 1/4-inch air fitting. Now, if you want, you can use a bike pump and use a standard bike valve, up to you. For my outlet, I'm actually just using a piece of scrap hose that's broken with another 1/4-inch air fitting. So everything is like with a quick connect, and it makes it easier to work with. So the way I'm going to do this is just screw in these little threaded adapters. Then we put our fitting on. And just something to hold the end. So I have this other fitting, but if you have a nut of the right size, that also works. And here we go, we've got our inlet valve, and this hooks up to our air compressor. And we only need 1 or 2 PSI. There's not a lot of flow that's going on here, just enough to get the smoke moving. And now we just put our output valve that our quick connect will hook up to. So, same idea, threaded nipple. Quick connect can go on. And then on the bottom, our nut to keep everything together. Then we just tighten everything up. And you should have something like this, an inlet and an outlet, once you're done. And this can go right on top of our can. Now all we have to do is put our material inside whatever we're going to burn to make the smoke. I'm going to be using whatever I find, probably some sort of oil, and hopefully we'll get a nice thick smoke that will linger around long enough for us to find our vacuum leak. So let's get to lighting this and give it a test run. All right, let's give this thing a test run. So I actually got some rocks to put in this can, because it'll give it a little bit of a lower center of gravity, and it'll also help it hold heat for a little longer. Now, you can actually apply heat however you like. I'm using a torch. You can use like a propane stove or a little electric range. anything. Just don't go crazy. You don't need a lot of heat. And I'm gonna just be using whatever oil is in here. I don't even remember what it is. I think it's motor oil. Motor oil will probably work just fine, just so it smokes a lot. And just coat the inside of it real nice. Then we can put our lid on. And shake that oil up, make it nice and thin. And we have our air supply. And we have our receiving hose. Now you have to be careful with this, and if you have a problem with your can tipping over, just put more rocks inside because of the air hose. You can also put the hole for the intake on the side. That might make it a little bit more stable. Whatever works for you. I like having a removable cap, and hopefully air will come out of our little end over here. I'll get into how I made this adapter for the intake later when we test this out and try and find the vacuum leak on this car. So I will start heating this up, and then we can add some air pressure. And as you can tell, it might be hard on camera, but we're getting a very nice steady stream of smoke. You don't need a lot of heat, and this will fill up the crankcase of the car nicely. So now let's take apart the intake, and I'll show you how to actually smoke test your car. As with anything involving fire, be careful not to burn yourself or anything on accident, because this will stay hot for a while now. And do know if you are using a compressed air line, once you put this on, it'll keep on blowing. So just be prepared. Let's start taking apart the intake, and I'll show you how to actually smoke test the car so we can find whatever vacuum leak is causing our drivability problem. Alright, so we have to actually disassemble our airbox assembly to get this going. So you're going to want to remove anything holding in your airbox. The goal is to remove everything up to the MAF, up to and including the MAF. And we're going to inject smoke where the MAF usually sits. The point of this is to see where the unmetered air is coming in, because the job of the MAF is to tell the ECU how much air is coming in the motor. If there's a hole after the MAF, that means the motor is going to start pulling in air from there, and the MAF won't know about it, which means the ECU won't know about it, which means the car will run like crap. So we have to fix any leaks that are after the MAF to take care of our drivability issue. So first we have to take off our airbox and unplug our MAF. Make sure you don't lose the screws. This is a E46 3 Series, and there's plenty of rubber that can crack as it gets old and let vacuum to leak. So once your airbox assembly is removed, you have to figure out a way how to get the smoke into your intake. Now, in my case, what I found is the packaging that electrical tape comes in is the exact same diameter as my intake boot. So what I did was just drill a hole right through the middle and put a broken air hose through with a fitting on the other end. So you have to do whatever fits your car. I've seen people use rubber gloves and tie them around and put a hole through them. Anything works as long as it holds air for the most part and won't leak. Otherwise, you'll just see a bunch of smoke, but you won't see where the smoke is really coming from because it's all coming from your junction here. So this actually fits really nicely, and I can put this clamp back on to really make it airtight. So now I'm ready to pump this motor full of smoke, and if there are any vacuum leaks, any places where unmetered air can get in after the math and set off all these errors, I'll be able to see where the smoke's coming from and remedy the problem. So let's get the smoke machine going and see where all the smoke's gonna come out of. I prepped our smoke machine, so I'm gonna hook up all our lines, and our intake is plumbed, and let's see if we can get an idea where our vacuum is coming from. I'm just gonna add some heat to this can.
If you ever need a helper, you should know that I'll be there day and night. Nobody else can love you better. I'm here just to treat you right. You're the reason I'm alive.
Alright, so it looks like it's pretty obvious where our vacuum leak is coming from. Somewhere up here on the upper side of the engine. In fact, it looks like it's coming right out of our DISA valve. And you can make sure that it's working to see if if smoke's coming out of your oil cap. That means the entire crankcase is filled with smoke. But you can see there's a nice steady stream of smoke coming right out of here. My bet is this DISA is shot and we're letting in a lot of unmetered air, and that's why this car will barely run. So let's pull it out and inspect the damage. Alright, so after pulling out the DISA that looked like it was leaking and inspecting it, well, there's something obviously missing here. So it looks like the flap got very loose, because once I pulled the DISA out, the flap practically fell out along with the seal on the bottom. So this bottom hole in the DISA was just pouring out smoke. The piece that broke looks like this. This used to be a white piece of plastic that has since yellowed, and it actually just broke under load. So I have this rebuild kit, and I'll be rebuilding this DISA as the vacuum diaphragm still holds. So I'm going to rebuild this DISA, and then we can reinstall it in the car and see if the car runs any better. Alright, so that turned out to be the issue. After replacing the DISA with a new one, or actually after rebuilding it, our vacuum leaks are gone and the car runs great. So that is the best way to look for vacuum leaks, and if you have lean codes or multiple misfires, it's a pretty high chance that it's a vacuum leak. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.